All right, fantastic. So, oh, most of you are off video, but if you guys could use the little emoji reactions, how many of you are actively working in a venture ops position right now? All right.
I'm sorry, I'm actually a founder. I am working in an ops position, but I'm actually a founder.
Okay, okay, thank you. So we have about what, three or four people in that situation. So okay, let's see. Okay, yes, that sounds great. All right, so maybe about like a third half of you guys. That's great information to know. So what I'll do, I'll introduce myself and then I'll introduce Casey and we'll get things going. And Heather, of course. So my name's Katie Swanson, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the founder of Oxen Labs and a space where, we help empower people to start investing and help them on their investment journey. And based on my background, I've supported over 40 different venture capital firms in their launch and support. So I'm very passionate about venture operations, and I see some hiccups in that space right now. And so I'd love to have this conversation around how we can make improvements, how we can make things a bit more efficient for everybody. And on that, I'd like to introduce Casey Williams. She's the COO and principal at Fenway Summer.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So like Katie said, I have kind of a dual role at Fenway Summer, both on the ops and the investing side. Fenway Summer broadly is a early stage venture firm. We're focused exclusively on fintech investments at the pre-seed and seed stage level. So I both run our operations and am part of the investment team for our most recent fund. I joined the team in 2020, so I started in venture ops a handful of years ago and kind of grew on that side before transitioning to investing. So similar to Katie, very passionate about venture ops. I think it's an amazing position for anyone interested in venture more broadly. I think it's a really interesting way to learn the business. And I think that it's really elevated my skills as an investor, and like hopefully as whatever I do next, whether that's like starting my own venture firm or starting my own company. I think it gives you a lot of those foundational like skills that you really need and can build on. So any opportunity to kind of like pull back the curtain on what the job actually looks like and trying to encourage more people to be interested in the ops side, I'm always really happy to take and excited about this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. And we also have Heather, who is founder and CEO of Willet PR, and she focuses on startups and venture capital firms. So Heather, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Katie and Casey. So yes, founder and CEO of Willet PR. Like Katie said, we work with primarily VCs, startups, primarily tech companies, and then B2B brands as well. And so we have a lot of experience in this space. Prior to starting Willet PR, I actually helped found a different PR agency startup, and there as well, we focused on startups and entrepreneurs. So we have a great deal of experience in this space. Our team, it consists of, seasoned professionals who have at least 10 years of experience, if not more. And that is because we want to make sure every account, every client that we work with has that level of expertise and strategy and everything that we do. So, I'm happy to be here and talk to you a little bit about how PR sort of plays a role in VCs, investors, and startup companies, and why that's important to maybe look at outsourcing that, because an operations person already has so much on their plate. adding communications to it is just too much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. So I won't be on my soapbox for too long. I'll let Casey take over, but I did want to talk a little bit about why this is something I care so much about. So, as kind of an operations professional within the VC realm, and touching on that space a lot, then I see a lot of other operations professionals get frustrated with how much is on their plate. Being in the startup world, we're used to wearing a million different hats, but usually they're in kind of a very similar realm as to what your expertise is in, where I see a lot of venture capital firms looking for and expecting their operations professional to be their executive assistant, be their event planner, be their internal ops, and also, portfolio operations, and really just run everything that isn't investing and fundraising, which is incredibly difficult. I don't think it's possible to have that kind of a skill set. If you do, you're your unicorn, and I would like to meet you myself. So it's frustrating to me that there is this like such a high expectation of these venture ops professionals. You can't be an expert in anything. So I'm really interested in talking about the best ways to outsource where your expertise may not lie, and kind of talk about in what ways you can, create efficiencies and not break the bank in doing so, and still be able to focus on, what you're incredible at. I'm also seeing a lot of people feel like there's a huge glass ceiling to being a venture ops professional. If you're not exposed to investing or fundraising or any of those kind of managing partner responsibilities, then you don't really feel like you have a lot of places you can go with your expertise. So I think Casey's a perfect example of someone who's been able to kind of break through that, and become a principal at her firm. So I'll let her go ahead and take over the conversation.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of really good points, and I'm not going to be able to touch on my thoughts on all of them in this first get-go. So I'll just touch on the ones that come to mind first, and then definitely encourage people to ask questions about what they're curious about or most want us to focus on, and happy to like tailor things from there. I started in this venture ops role when I was very early in my career. I was like mid-20s at the time, brand new to venture, had some operations experience, but what I loved about the role was the taste of everything kind of ability that venture ops gives you. I mean, you get to touch every single aspect of the firm if you are at a firm that is open to that. And I'm very fortunate. To Katie's point, not everybody is set up for success in venture ops. So I think one thing to look for if you are considering a role in venture operations, or if you're working with a firm as a third party, is like, how do they position their ops people? Do they position them as sort of secondary, or do they position them as integral? And I was very much an integral part of our firm. I think we had this mentality of like, anything that you want to do and anything that you can provide to be an asset, like the answer is yes, go do it. I think this is a really interesting way to get started in venture, because you do get to touch all of these different things and you get to see holistically how the firm works. Obviously, as I became more senior in that role, and learned a little bit more, I was able to tailor my experience to what I was most interested in. The other thing about venture ops is like, it kind of means different things at every different firm. So this may not be true at other VCs, but in my experience, part of what I did was a lot of portfolio management. And through that, I got to see like, okay, really what I like is the investing side of this, and was able to kind of transition and move my focus in that direction. But I used all of the skills that I got from the 2.5 years that I spent on the ops side to be able to do that really effectively, and to bring a very different kind of experience to venture than someone who sort of starts on the investing side as an associate or an analyst and like moves up from there. So I think there's a lot of really great things to be said about that. All of that to be said, like, Katie, I'm not the unicorn person that you mentioned, and I would not have been able to do this job well if it weren't for the help of the teams that we worked with externally. I still, like, I cannot, run the tax process for our venture firm from start to finish without the help of like seasoned tax professionals. Same on the accounting side, same on different events that we've planned. Like all of these require expertise. And so I think it's really beneficial to think about like how you bring that in, and how you kind of balance your core operations base with the different partners that you're working with based on sort of the phase of the fund that you're in, based on the focus that you have. And Heather, I'm really curious to hear like your experience of, you know, when you're partnering with firms, like what their approach is and how they kind of decide like, yes, this is the like best time or like best way to partner with you, because I think that's something that, like Katie said, all VCs can really get much better at.
Yeah, I think it's well, one, I think the biggest thing that we look for is just VCs, investors who believe in the power of PR and marketing. I think that's really essential. I think both from the investor perspective, right, from the VC, that they believe in it, but also that they are investing in companies who believe in the power of PR and marketing. I think that's essential. I think, I mean, PR marketing is effective at any stage. So whether they've just brought on, you know, an investment, they have a new portfolio company, and that portfolio company is about to launch, great. So there's definitely PR marketing that can happen around there. And the level of what you can do with the communications, it just depends. It depends on budget, depends on goals. Obviously, we believe that the most effective strategy is one that is ongoing. It's an integrated strategy. So are you doing social media? Are you building content? Are you getting in front of, you know, you creating an online media presence? You know, did you put out a press release for this launch? Are you, you know, continuing to follow up and build relationships with key, you know, journalists? So there's a lot. And that's why you work with, you know, someone who's a specialist at it, because not only do they have those relationships, they also know the strategy and they know the timing of everything and how to kind of lay that out, and implement it at the best time. Did that answer your question, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, Heather, do you want to go ahead with your presentation?
Sure, I'd be happy to jump in. Are you able to give me access to share my screen?
Yeah, sorry, I was a little delayed in that. I just clicked it.
That's okay. Okay, perfect. Let me know if you all can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to dive right in. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so I kind of talked a little bit about myself, Willet PR. Like I said, we are a full service public relations agency. We have been around, you know, we have so much experience. I have nearly 20 years of experience in PR and marketing. Myself and the team, each member of our team has at least 10 years of experience. And we have been doing this a long time for startups, for entrepreneurs, and then VCs, of course. Like I said, we work with primarily VCs, startups, and entrepreneurs in the tech space, so tech brands, and then B2B services as well. But to the big part of this presentation is really diving into the PR opportunities. And there are 3 key ways that PR and marketing can really help VCs at different stages. So the first is really looking at using PR and marketing as part of the due diligence, right? Part of the evaluation of investment opportunities. Venture capitalists are often inundated with a lot of investment opportunities, and you likely rely on a number of sources to discover these potential opportunities and potential companies. So effective PR efforts can actually increase those companies' visibility, ensuring that they stand out from competition. The second way, and I'll dive into each of these a little bit more. The second way is for the venture capitalists to also stand out. So it's a two-way street, right? VCs are obviously competing with other VCs, investors that are very similar. How are you standing out? What are you doing to stand out among your competitors? So doing PR for yourself, to be a little bit more visible, show some more expertise in the industry, and what you've already been able to do and accomplish is really important. This also gives those same entrepreneurs an opportunity to see that the VC can offer more than just money, right? You can offer potentially a platform, and this, that might be strategy, it might be resources, it might be, an agency partner in this case, which can be really appealing in the evaluation process for some of these entrepreneurs as they're trying to decide on a VC or an investor to go with. And then the third is shining a light on portfolio companies. VCs can actually use, like I said, if they're teaming up with a PR agency or a marketing agency, and Casey, I think that you said at one point that you've outsourced some of the operation side of things. When you're teaming up with these outside resources, that can actually be a benefit to your portfolio companies too, and allow them to stand out. And like I said, I will dive into each of these a little bit more. So this first one, doing your due diligence. As an investor or VC, your goal is to look for the strongest investment opportunities, and the ones that have the most potential to grow. So putting energy into PR and marketing is pretty wise. It demonstrates the company, like the entrepreneur or the startup's ability to stand out and amongst their competitors, and empowers them to grow, but it also empowers the VC to look at the best companies, which ones are already doing this work. They understand the market, they understand how to make a name for themselves, and they're already creating the most viability for success just by doing that. So part of the due diligence process is likely looking for who is talking about this in the industry. Is this potential, investment opportunity? Are they getting out there? Are they putting any content out there? Are they, writing any thought leadership? Are their leadership team, is their name synonymous with this, industry, with this subject, with the topic? Is there any sort of online presence there? So that's some of the things you'll want to look for when you're looking at these investment opportunities, and how are they leveraging PR and marketing internally? Do they believe in it? I kind of already touched on this, talking to, when I was answering Casey's question. You do want to find people, entrepreneurs, founders who believe in the power of PR and marketing, because it can really move the needle, both at the beginning and down the road. And as a VC or an investor, it's important that you also do your part to learn a little bit more about PR and marketing and how it can benefit you and your portfolio companies. Any questions so far? No? Okay, moving on. The second way we kind of talked about this is creating visibility for the investor, the VC itself. So before agreeing to meet with a VC, many of these entrepreneurs are actually going to conduct meticulous due diligence, like I just said, by reading blogs, tweets, looking for an online presence. They'll look for articles, look for executive profiles, anything like that. And I'm sure all of you are aware of Andreessen Horowitz. Years ago, they actually proved the power of PR and marketing for VC firms themselves. So by engaging in aggressive PR and marketing strategies like content and thought leadership, all the things I just mentioned, these two venture capitalists actually appealed to their target audience, top tier entrepreneurs. They teamed up with an outside resource, so an expert in PR and marketing. They brought her in to establish some of these and implement some of these, really creative, innovative strategies. And in 3 years, Andreessen Horowitz raised $2.7 billion. That's more than any other VC firm in that same time span. So, and this isn't a one-off case either. Some of the most successful VC firms have actually adopted this integrated marketing and PR strategies to move the needle, both for their VC, like as the fund itself, the firm itself, and for their portfolio companies. And working with specialists, experts, outside resources, that allows somebody like myself to come in and then oversee the strategic internal and external initiatives to help support both the VC and the portfolio company, so that it's sort of taken off the operator's plate and handed over to somebody who, like I said, can be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more effective in the strategies. Any questions there? Nope. Okay. And then the last way is sort of creating this platform. And I kind of touched on this already, but it's not only important for to leverage PR and communications for the VC itself, but also for portfolio companies. And part of doing that is creating this platform, which is essentially offering something outside of just the money, just the investment, right? It's being able to offer additional resources. So those resources might be working with, an accounting firm and outsourcing that to help your portfolio companies, figure out their financial strategies. It might be working with a PR agency. It might be working with a marketing agency, offering them a number of different ways that you can bring other value to the table is really important. Some of the ways we've talked about that is it can be something as simple as just making an introduction to a PR agency. And the PR agency might just introduce you to some key journalists in your space. It could be a full-blown PR program. It could be just doing like some very hyper-targeted outreach around a funding round. You're going to do a press release, something like that, and you push that out. So there are a lot of different ways that you can effectively leverage PR and marketing, depending on your stage, stage of growth for the portfolio companies. But all of them are pretty effective. And it just is, like I said, depends on budget. It depends on goals. So yeah, any questions here? No? Okay. And we've also seen this. So as I have on this slide, David Crane. So he was with Google as the former director of global communications and public affairs. But he also worked with Global Ventures or Google Ventures and their portfolio companies. And so he was actually working to provide both internal strategic communications for the VC and then also for the portfolio companies as well. It's just another strategy to attract the right investment opportunities, the right companies, and partner up with them. So you're offering more than just the money. You're making sure that your portfolio companies are also geared for success. You're sort of laying that right foundation. We have worked with a number of VCs who have done this, both internally. They have brought us in to kind of build the name, just like Andreessen Horowitz, build their names, make them synonymous with like their industry, their target audience. We've built, entire thought leadership programs for them to make, to kind of boost their the brand awareness and get their SMEs, so their subject matter experts out there. And then we've also been brought in to work with portfolio companies as sort of like an agency partner to help build those brands. We've been brought in to do funding rounds, launch rounds. We do a press release and then we go out and we launch that. And then we do a bunch of follow-up and outreach to journalists. We schedule interviews. We've written content that then gets placed and published. So we've done a lot of this. And we've seen a lot of success too. So, which leads me to my next slide, which is the potential ROI. So it really, I mean, there are lots of ways we can kind of look at the ROI and measure success. It really depends on what the VC or the company is looking for and how they're going to measure success. So we often look at what we call a share of voice report. That's to see among your competitors, how much of the market do you have based on the coverage, the media coverage you've received, based on any interviews that you've done, content that's out there, and then social media presence as well. But sometimes we're looking at website traffic. Sometimes we're just looking at the number of placements, media placements that we've managed to get in a period of time, in a quarter or in a month, and sort of looking at those metrics. But as you can see here, PR and marketing can really move the needle, both for the VC and for startups and portfolio companies as well. It's pretty powerful. Any questions? No? Okay. And then here are just a couple quotes just to show that, this is something that is being adopted more and more among the industry, both within the VCs and then with their portfolio companies as well, as an additional offer, something that VCs are bringing to the table for their portfolio companies. And we're seeing more of this. It is becoming a more powerful tool and an effective one at that. So I suspect you'll see more and more of this as VCs continue to figure out how they can separate themselves and differentiate themselves from other VCs, from just their competitors, and then also making sure that their portfolio companies are standing out among their competitors. So that is it. That is all I have. Sort of my little spiel about PR and marketing and how it works within this space. I think the important thing is that it's really important to kind of identify what we're each capable of, right? My expertise is in PR and marketing. I think, with Casey, she's talking about, the operation side of things. I think it's really important to identify that it's really hard for somebody to do it all. And it's important to be able to find those experts that you can outsource to, that you can work with, you can team up with. And one of the beauties of, the clients that we work with, the VC clients, the portfolio clients that we work with, is that they see us as a partner. We are part of the team and we're really just an extension of them. But this is what we know, and this is what we've been doing for a long time. So we bring that level of expertise that maybe they don't have.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's all I have, Katie. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So, following that, I think that it's really important to understand, as the ops professional, what is it that you need to look for in a partner? So, something that Heather didn't mention, which I know she's very familiar with, is regulations around your capital raising. So, you have an exemption you're working with, and so you have to know. You have to know that these exemptions exist, and then understand, okay, the person that I'm looking for also needs to understand this, and can take it from there, because you don't want to be the operations person doesn't want to be the person who has to understand all of these details, because getting into the nitty-gritty of all the laws and regulations is just overwhelming. So if you know them, that's fantastic. But if you don't, then yeah, make sure that the person that you're working with does. And that's true for all aspects of, whatever third party you might be working with, not just PR and marketing.
So I will say, just to add to what you said, Katie, tech PR, B2B PR, VC PR, all of that. There is technicality to it. So you do want to make sure that you're partnering with people who understand the space, have direct experience in this space, and, can honestly like bring that value to whatever program you're implementing.
Exactly. And I think I wanted to double click on something that Heather was talking about in her presentation, which is essentially just creating a PR plan. I've worked with so many emerging managers, people who are raising, and they just kind of they're like, okay, so I've gotten to X amount of money, but I need to raise so much more. How do I position myself? And so it's, as you know, the expert in a certain industry. So even if you're an emerging manager looking to raise, then you need a PR plan for yourself and a marketing plan for yourself so that you can position yourself in such a way that brings, establishes you as that expert and as that person that people should trust with their finances. So I think that's an interesting area to kind of think about as well.
I will also say that, and I kind of touched on this. I mean, we have done PR and marketing for, companies at every stage. So that's whether they're launching or they're looking to sell. And when they're looking to sell the company, it's also really important to make sure that there is visibility, that there is a media presence, that people are talking about this, that they want to talk about it. All of that ends up generating more customers or clients. It ends up generating more revenue, website traffic. So I mean, when a company is looking to buy out another company, they're looking for that. And so we have worked with companies who are looking to sell and, make sure that they are getting the online presence and the media attention that they're looking for.
Absolutely. So, should we hop into some of these questions? Let's see. I'm answering one right now, but Casey, do you want to take the question regarding what are the key responsibilities of a VC ops professional and what kind of characteristics they have?
Yeah, of course. So I think starting with the key characteristics, I listed a couple in response to the question in the chat. But I think that the big things, right? Attention to detail, somebody who's detail oriented, that's going to be really crucial for an ops position. A lot of the things that go on in ops are like related to coordination, execution, and decision making. And oftentimes I feel like the ops person in the room is the person that is asked like the small but critical details. So talking about compliance, talking about regulations, even talking about like a marketing schedule, all of these things are built on top of layers of detail that ops people, like I'm always so impressed with their ability to just like pull details out of thin air. And of course, you do not need to be like that level of like scary, amazing with your retention of detail, but someone who in general is hyper like organized and efficient in that way, I think is really critical. And then someone who's like high execution and efficiency bias, somebody who really likes getting things done, I think is a great skill for anybody in operations. And of course, like a ton of the stuff that Heather was talking about, like coordinating interviews, getting in front of the right journalists, like thinking through the high level strategy, all of those things require a ton of execution and efficiency. And if that's not top of mind for anybody at the firm, it's just not going to get done. So I think that's also, I think all of these skills are also things that you can look for in the people that you partner with too. In terms of like big picture, kind of what the day-to-day is, like this is, I say this a little bit in jest, but like truly it is like any and everything that needs to happen in a day-to-day to make sure that the firm continues to run. And so like I think that goes back to this question of like what does it mean to be an ops professional in venture? Like it's something very different to every different person, because I think on any given day you're like, signing off on your fund audit, which is a huge, high level, very mission critical thing for any venture firm to like making sure that the coffee gets ordered and across your ops team, like all of those things kind of get relegated to you. And there's a ton of interconnection between all of the different tasks that you're performing. So day to day, I think things can feel a bit sporadic. And again, like having that kind of bent towards being interested in a bunch of different things, even when you're partnering, even when you're outsourcing, an ops person is still going to be touching all of these different things. So again, that's something I really enjoy about my day, is like getting to spend time on the sort of black and white finance things, and the like higher level, how do we elevate our thought leadership? How do we get people speaking on panels and attending events things? And the like talking with an investor who has questions about the status of the fund, or with a founder who like needs our help on XYZ thing. And I think that's can be a really enjoyable part of the job. It can certainly also be a very overwhelming part of the job. So it's all about how your fund balances those tasks, and how you're sort of supported throughout the fund structure. But getting to see all of those things is how you then long-term help kind of like influence the strategy of your fund over time, and lay the foundation for success, to make sure that you can raise a subsequent fund, or, you know, whatever it is. At Fenway, we've like built fintech companies internally. So I had to learn how to like start C Corps, you know, which is like totally different from the structure, the legal structure for a VC fund. And all of these different things, I think like ops is really the starting point of making sure that those things happen successfully.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. And I think it's kind of funny because what you said totally does touch on the fact that you do everything. You have to be able to know how to do everything. I don't know how to order coffee, unless I'm at Blue Bottle. But anyways, so I wanted to address a question about starting a venture capital firm. What do you do first? Do you look for LPs or funding, or do you look for investments? And it's kind of, you know, as Casey mentioned, it's something that you need to do in tandem, because if you don't have a track record, then that's kind of difficult. And a track record meaning, you know, a portfolio of investments that you've already made that have shown that you're a successful investor. Then you really need a portfolio of investments that an investor would be interested in getting in on, and showing some proof around, okay, you are a good investor, you do have some good deal flow, and you have access to these things. So in order to get LPs, then you need portcos. In order to get portcos, you need LPs. So it's a little bit of a balance. But if it's truly starting with your own angel investments, and then going from there. Casey, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on to that.
I think that's the perfect answer. And the only thing I'll add is that I think that your investment thesis as a VC is really what like makes this something that feels symbiotic and gets like the flywheel of your fund to spend versus like having to allocate time to companies and LPs separately. And I think this is somewhere where, again, like a marketing professional, a PR professional, someone who can help you really determine how to translate like your expertise and your unique edge as an investor into your story is really critical, if that is like not one of your core skills. And so maybe like a concrete example for Fenway, I mentioned we are completely focused on fintech. So we spend a ton of time in that industry looking solely at those founders and that ecosystem of players. And we also started our fund really looking for investors, institutions, and high net worth individuals that were also really invested in and interested in fintech. So we started with people who had successful careers as bankers. We started with different funds that had focuses on like traditional financial services, and we're looking for the tech that they could incorporate into their future vision and strategy. And all of that started to feed into like, we would talk to these like people who had worked in senior leadership at banks, and they would say, oh, well, like, you know, you should talk to this person. And that person would say, oh, I know somebody who's starting a company in this thing. Or they would say, oh, like I've worked really closely with this person who would be an amazing founder. And you start to get that flywheel to spin where everybody that you're talking to is beneficial on both sides. So really getting clear about like, why am I starting this funds? Why am I the ideal GP, managing partner, fundraiser, executor of all of these things? And if that doesn't come naturally to you, or if you try pitching that to a couple of people and they're like, what? Like, talk to Heather, like talk to a professional about those types of things and get really clear on how you identify your brand and how you storytell that to people. And I think that can be a huge game changer in getting the supply and the demand, if we want to keep like talking in that phrase.
I think that's a great answer. Thank you for going into the additional detail. I wanted to open it up. We have 15 minutes left, and I know a handful of people had to jump at the half-hour mark. But if anyone has any questions, now's a good time. Speak up, raise your hand, go off mute, whatever it is that you'd want to do. Also, I'm really interested in hearing from any of you current active ops professionals, if you have similar experiences to what we're talking about, or if you've had an experience that's been completely different. I'd love to hear about that too. So I'm curious if anyone wants to jump in on that. And no pressure to show your face if you want to stay off camera and answer or ask questions. Okay, how about this? What is the biggest difficulty that any of you have had as an operations professional at a venture capital firm?
I'll go ahead and share. My name is Lauren and I'm with Sozo Ventures. I think in general, jumping into the industry where there's not a playbook is pretty tricky. So really leaning on, different webinars and different folks in this network has been really beneficial. So the biggest thing was just a learning curve to begin with.
So Lauren, were you in venture before you joined this opportunity, or is this?
No, I came from a different industry. So, just learning all of the new lingo and terminology and process was very exciting. And like I said, a lot of us recognize that there aren't guidebooks to lead you on. So yeah, definitely find things like Let's Talk Ops, really big advocate for that group, and just continuing to chat with other folks, even if they're not doing the similar exact role as you, but always learning how other firms are operating is helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that experience. I can imagine it being, I guess I transitioned to venture capital a few years ago too. And yeah, there's not a lot of great resources out there for people who are new to this space, which is definitely why I started Oxen Labs. If I had had that when I was starting, then it would, yeah, my goal is to make people's lives easier in that situation. Something, again, this is open time for people to ask questions and all of that. So feel free to raise your hand or jump in. But something that I've found kind of a fun topic to chat about is because I have worked with so many emerging managers, the number one thing they automatically go to in order to, create the voice and the image of themselves is to make a podcast. And I think that there's a lot of really great memes out there about, you're not a VC unless you have a podcast, kind of thing. So that's a little bit of a fun discussion to have. Has anyone, started a podcast or jumped on a podcast and found results in that? It's such a hard space to break into. And Casey, it looked like you had something to say about that, so I'll let you go ahead.
Well, I just think it's funny, like Heather, in your presentation, you had a quote that's like, you would be hard pressed to find any VC firm that doesn't have at least one partner who's trying to position themselves as a thought leader in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I just feel like what the world does not need is another podcast. I feel like I'm like subscribed to like 300, and every day I get like the refresh of episodes that I'm supposed to listen to, and it's just overwhelming. And but the flip side of that is like, there are these people that are really interesting and have really good perspectives on things, and like they, you know, I want them to share that and I want to get that. And so I feel like it's like the eternal struggle from a professional standpoint of like, how do I get my perspective and my expertise out into the world effectively? And then on the flip side, how do I like take in that information and find the right resources at the right time without totally getting like information overwhelm? And Heather, I would love like a quick, you know, like what's the lesson we all can take there? Because right now I am like desperately trying to increase my LinkedIn presence, and it's like I will spend hours crafting a post for LinkedIn, and then it gets like 2 likes, one of which is like my husband, and you know, it's just like the eternal struggle. So I would love your insight there.
It's funny. Like I think about that too with like all the podcasts. I mean, imagine if you're not doing anything, right? Imagine if you, you know, as an investor or your VC firm isn't doing any sort of like PR marketing, any sort of content, then I mean, it's one thing to be out there, but to be competing with some of these other voices, it's another to not be out there at all. You're not really making a name for yourself. So I think it really is important. And I think it's what's even more important is honing in on sort of like your brand voice, the messages you want to and finding a really innovative way to do that so that you are standing out among the noise. That being said, LinkedIn. So my number one tip here is you do not need to post every day. Maybe, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. And because with the LinkedIn algorithm, those posts will continue to like sort of show up. It's not like Instagram or TikTok or something like that, where you have to post every single day in order to like not be lost. And to sort of stay relevant. That's not really the case with LinkedIn. I think the most important thing about LinkedIn is just have a point of view, have a unique perspective, and you know, write a post that is authentic to you or authentic to, you know, your firm, and just bring value to whatever you're doing and whatever you're saying on LinkedIn. That's where people are going to start digesting your content. Once you're starting to do that on LinkedIn, you maybe have a blog going as well, you know, on your professional website. Great. Then you can start looking into, you know, expanding on that content, looking for media opportunities, looking for podcast opportunities, things like that. But people are going to first start digesting some of your content on LinkedIn. So I think it's just really important that brings value.
I
Yeah,
want to
I think
add, sorry, go ahead.
just really quickly, I was going to say another thing that can be helpful if you don't want to sort of go the like zero, like I never post, to like I'm going to post every single day on LinkedIn. Another really good thing is just engaging with other people's posts, like and having that dialogue with people. One, it's going to help foster those like actual connections with people, hopefully over time. Two, I don't know, maybe there's some magic to the algorithm there, where if you're more engaged across the platform, what you do will get more reach. I have no idea. That is not backed up by science. That is just something in this moment. But 3, I think it helps you determine on like a smaller level what things resonate with people. So if you comment, if somebody makes a post and you comment, and then that comment gets a lot of replies, then maybe that's something that you spin out into a standalone post, and you can tell like, okay, that flopped, or like that really resonated. And it's a good way to test like what's going to be the most kind of bang for your buck when you're actually posting things from your own page.
So I think, you know, just sort of tacking on to that, Casey, is, you know, we have tools at our disposal where we're actually able to kind of go through the content on LinkedIn, you know, around a certain subject or an industry, and kind of pull like what is the valuable content that people want to engage with, that they want more of. You know, so that helps us sort of redirect our strategies, you know, or pivot where we need to. Yeah.
And
Katie, you were going to say something.
yeah, I think that someone somewhere made a comment. I think it was in the OGC for the speakers who are also in the OGC, where someone had mentioned a lot of times people are looking at your content on LinkedIn and not engaging. And, you know, I sent a message yesterday to somebody where I said, I follow everything that you do. Like, I'm really interested because I wanted to connect with him about something that he had posted. But it's like, I don't typically engage with what he's saying, but it's very valuable to me. And eventually those people will engage and those people will connect with you. And I mean, I refer his content to other people all the time. So even if you get 2 likes, that doesn't mean people aren't looking, and that doesn't mean people aren't interested. So for those of you who are trying to create this like persona of being a thought leader, don't let 1 or 2 likes get you down. Keep posting, keep becoming you know, that person that you are, and creating that brand for yourself.
So like, again, I'm just going to add to that. Yeah, we've worked with, you know, we have worked with some founders, we've worked with some, you know, industry leaders where they're trying to like sort of build up this online presence on social media. And you, again, to Katie's point, you might not see the likes or the engagement that you'd want to see, but they have had like a big increase in the amount of followers and people who want to connect with them. So they might not always be engaging, they might not always be commenting, but we do see that even when they're putting out content, they are like the amount of connections and followers that they receive definitely increases. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we did just focus on PR a little bit, but
I know, sorry.
no, that's not your bad. I think that venture capital, I mean, it's huge because I mean, like I said, because there are so many regulations around what can be said about a firm or a fund, especially if you're raising, then personal brand is incredibly important. And especially as an operations professional in venture capital, then if you feel like you have this glass ceiling of, you know, how you can grow, then it's really important to create your own brand. It's really important to, you know, say, yeah, I'm Katie Swanson. I might be associated with this firm, but I am an expert in this area and I can be a resource. So, you know, a lot of us are married to our careers, which, you know, is great, but it's also important to recognize that you are an individual as well, and you can do a lot based on your own persona. So we just have a couple of minutes. Does anyone have any questions, any thoughts? We've had a quiet audience today, so I just want to give that final push for anyone who wants to speak up. Or anyone who's looking for resources. Like I said, I'm happy to share some of the resources we talk about, and if anyone's looking for opportunities in operations or connections, then feel free to speak up and we can hopefully send some your way.
So Katie, this is Uma. I'm not an operations professional and I'm a founder. So, you know, I just wanted to see what VC operations look like, and, you know, listening to what you and Casey have been talking about, it's been, you know, interesting that as a startup, you kind of have the same kind of things that you have to deal with. And Heather, you know, it's good to understand the PR aspect, because I keep going back and forth as to, do we need to do this? When do we need to do this? That kind of stuff. So just thank you for sharing your expertise and experience.
Yeah, of course. One thing I will say there is, if anyone on this call, you know, has questions about when to start PR and marketing, feel free to reach out, whether that's me, someone on my team, or even another PR agency. Anyone who's worth their salt will give you proper direction on when you should start or what you should be doing before you start a PR program. You know, we're here to essentially be, like I said, an extension of you guys. And you know, the best advice we can give is ones that, you know, is advice that's actually going to help you be successful. So, you know, sometimes it's a good time to start, and other times you want to do other things to kind of, you know, before you start. So happy to answer any of those questions offline at any time.
Yeah, and the LinkedIn tip was good, because I hover on LinkedIn. I never response. So, but
Yeah.
it's definitely good to know.
And I will include the email addresses of Casey and Heather, and the email that goes out will come directly to me. So if you have any questions, feel free to just respond to that email, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. So, unless Casey, Heather, do you have any last minute thoughts that you want to share? Anything we didn't cover?
No, I think this was great.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. And yeah, feel free to reach out and connect with us on LinkedIn. And we can help you as much as we can. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday and have a beautiful week.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.